Thank you for the privilege of being part of the First International Congress, United for Life, and I especially want to thank Jesus Magana for his extraordinary vision, effectiveness, courage, and leadership. My friends, you and I are part of the greatest human rights struggle on earth. We pray, fast, and work without ceasing to protect the weakest and most vulnerable from the violence of abortion. We affirm the innate value, dignity, and preciousness of women and babies. We love them both. And as a people of hope and indomitable faith in God, we remain absolutely committed to defending human life no matter the sacrifice. And out of an abundance of compassion, we respect even those with whom we fundamentally disagree, even when it's not reciprocated. 48 years ago, in a case known as Roe v. Wade, the United States Supreme Court recklessly abandoned women and babies in my country to what is now a multi-billion-dollar abortion industry. The tragic result? Since 1973, more than 62 million unborn children, I say again, 62 million unborn children in the United States have been dismembered or chemically poisoned by abortion, a death toll that exceeds the combined populations of Colombia and Honduras. All of this carnage has occurred as our knowledge is unparalleled concerning the breathtaking miracle of life before birth, and when science has made absolutely clear that birth is an important event in the life of a child, but only an event, not its beginning. Doctors, as you know, today routinely diagnose and treat a myriad of conditions, illnesses, and diseases suffered by society's littlest patients, the babies in the womb, significantly enhancing their health and chances to survive and thrive. In the ever-escalating abortion debates in our countries, we need to strongly assert the fact that ill, sick, or disabled unborn children must be seen as patients in need of health care, and that includes diagnosis and treatment. We know that ensuring good nutrition and essential vitamins during the first 1,000 days of life, from conception to a child's second birthday, not only boosts a child's health and ability to stave off disease for his entire lifetime, but it also mitigates and even eliminates stunting and nutrition-deprived cognitive impairment. Today, many parents in the United States proudly share ultrasound photos showing their baby alive and maturing in the womb. These first baby pictures are prominently displayed and are a testimony to the humanity of the unborn child. Yet the green scarf-waving pro-abortion movement, like a modern-day flat earth society, continues to cling to indefensible arguments cloaked in euphemism. The pro-abortion use of the word choice withers under scrutiny. Choice to do what? Dismember a baby? Starve a child to death with RU-46 and then forcibly expel her or him from the womb? To facilitate the baby's extermination, pro-abortionists aggressively deny and disrespect the unborn child, and loudly mock each of us who defend a child's most basic human right, the right to live. I say let their harsh criticism cause us to work even harder and more effectively, and as our Lord admonishes, all while loving those who even hate us. If we fail to defend the voiceless and the vulnerable, who will? Both my wife Marie and I have been in the pro-life movement for nearly 50 years each. Like you, we know that pregnancy care centers help women with unintended pregnancies through their most difficult times and stay with them like guardian angels after the baby is born. The people who staff these centers, mostly women, and there are approximately 3,000 pregnancy care centers in the U.S., are among the most compassionate people on earth. We also know that many women who have benefited from post-abortion outreach and care. These women have been wounded by their abortion, and their agony often goes undetected and untreated, part of the myth that presents abortion as reproductive health care or as a so-called reproductive right. There is nothing whatsoever benign or caring about abortion. Thankfully, more women are speaking out about the tragic loss of their own child through abortion and the emotional, psychological, and spiritual harm that they have suffered. These women's experiences are an emerging witness for truth and a tremendous help to policymakers to restrict and regulate access to abortion. So encourage women to tell their stories to lawmakers and in amicus curiae briefs in your courts. During arguments before the Supreme Court on the partial birth abortion ban in 2003, which banned a gruesome late-term procedure, almost 200 women who procured abortion submitted an amicus curiae brief about their personal experience, and it was powerful. In a court case arising out of Texas, 3,348 women submitted a brief that they were injured by their own abortions. Most of the women injured by abortion suffered grievous psychological injuries, but many suffered severe physical complications as well. These brave women can inform, sensitize, and persuade. Linda Shrewsbury, for example, an academic and African American with a degree from Harvard, who had an abortion, said, and I quote her, "The lies that brought me to that day and its sorrowful aftermath are crystal clear in my mind. Falsehoods and deceptions that concealed the truth about abortion. Lies planted in my thinking by clever marketing, media campaigns, and endless repetition led to a tragic, irreversible decision, the death of my first child. I didn't really understand back then," she continued. "At the age of 20, I had no inkling of the mental and emotional darkness I was about to enter. I couldn't have grasped the immense psychological toll abortion would take for years into the future. Unrelenting tears, guilt, shame, and depression. After spending many years in denial, I did eventually find healing," she goes on, "when I understood and rejected distortions about fetal development, doublespeak about choice, rights, planned, and wanted children. I understood the reality and victimhood of my aborted child. When I embraced the truth," she went on, "the truth set me free, and I finally gained inner peace." Close quote. Irene Beltram said this, "My entire being was overcome by terror, and I felt a deep anguish in the core of my soul when I ended the life of my own child for the sake of convenience." Kelly Stauffer spoke of her abortion, quote, "We all thought abortion would erase the situation I had gotten myself into, and we would go on living life the way it was. That was not the case. Life, sadly, was never the same. I hated myself. I tried to numb my pain in any way I could find. Drugs, alcohol, food, meaningless relationships, but nothing took away the deep darkness that overwhelmed my soul. A friend persuaded me to go to Rachel's Vineyard, to a retreat, and that weekend saved my life. I allowed myself to feel the forgiveness of God, and had been showing me all along, and I will never forget what I did to my first child," close quote. It is clear abortion imposes serious harm on women, the co-victims of abortion, and they need our help. Women and children deserve better than abortion. As chairman of the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus for 38 years, I encourage lawmakers everywhere to organize a similar pro-life caucus if one is not yet active. A highly motivated and highly disciplined pro-life legislative caucus or working group can anticipate and study what the pro-abortionists are planning and counter their actions. Working with pro-life non-governmental organizations and faith-based groups, the caucus members will enhance their effectiveness in enacting laws and promulgating policies at all levels of government that affirm human life. I encourage you to pay close attention to the health ministry and other bureaucrats who write the rules regulating access to abortions. Regulations on the legal access to abortion are critically important in a country and make all the difference in limiting the number of children whose lives are ended through abortion. Activists in favor of abortion most often target health regulations on abortion, seeking to impose anti-life policies on a country with a stroke of the pen. Be alert and be proactive in countering pro-abortion campaigns directed at you by the United Nations and UN treaty monitoring bodies. No UN treaty includes a so-called right to abortion, and there is no international right to abortion. Moreover, Article 4 of the American Convention on Human Rights clearly states, and I quote, "Every person has the right to have his life respected. This right shall be protected by law and in general from the moment of conception. So push back hard when lectured to expand abortion. Women and children in your country and mine deserve better than abortion. And continue as you have to pay special attention to the judiciary. As you know, abortion activists aggressively exploit the courts for their cause, and as happened in the United States in Roe v. Wade in 1973, and in your country in 2006 by Monica Roa. Neither the United States Congress nor the President legalized abortion in my country. The U.S. Supreme Court did, and declared abortion a constitutional right in 1973. For the past 48 years, the extraordinarily difficult to achieve remedy that's available to us to overcome the Supreme Court abortion decisions has been to pass a pro-life constitutional amendment that our Constitution says requires 2/3 supermajorities in both the House and the Senate and ratification by 38 state legislatures. A very high bar to overcome, especially when, sadly, every Democrat in the House of Representatives votes in favor of abortion. The other remedy available is reversal by the Supreme Court itself, a strategy we have pursued for decades. A major reason why President Biden and Democrats in Congress are trying to add 4 new so-called progressive justices to the U.S. Supreme Court, in other words, pack it from 9 justices to 13, is to ensure that abortion on demand until birth remains constitutionally protected. The United States is divided politically and morally on abortion. The Democratic Party has dropped any pretense that abortion is to be avoided and no longer declares that abortions should be rare. And that started under Bill Clinton. We see this divide in Congress and on the state level. Pro-life policymakers at the state level have enacted hundreds of state laws that ensure parental involvement in a minor's abortion, women's right to know, or what is also known as informed consent, and protection for unborn children when a heartbeat is detected, and much more, and to regulate and restrict abortion in the United States. As abortion methods have increasingly moved away from surgical abortion to the use of abortion-inducing drugs, states are enacting regulations that address non-surgical abortion, estimated to now make up over 1/3 of all abortions in the United States. An average 50 new pro-life laws are enacted every year on the state level in my country. Already in 2021, 34 new pro-life laws have been passed, largely by Republican legislators and signed by Republican governors. Almost every pro-life law we pass, however, is challenged in court to determine whether it comports with U.S. Supreme Court decisions. Frequently, the courts nullify the pro-life law. Making matters worse, on January 22nd, President Biden said that he wants to codify and expand Roe v. Wade, which would nullify hundreds of state and federal laws regulating abortion. Still, we persist. In recent years, while under Republican control, the House passed legislation to ban sex selection abortion to protect the girl child from this insidious form of sex discrimination. The Senate, however, failed to consider the bill. President Obama made it clear that if the sex selection abortion ban or any other new pro-life bill was sent to the White House while he was in office, that he would veto it. The House passed the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, a modest but necessary attempt to at least protect babies who are 20 weeks or older and pain-capable from having to suffer and die from abortion. The Senate also failed to pass that bill. By executive order, President Trump created the Protecting Life in Global Health Assistance Policy, or Mexico City policy, a significant reiteration and expansion of President Ronald Reagan's Mexico City policy. Under President Trump's policy, pro-life conditions were attached to all global health funds, about $9 billion. Announced by President Reagan at the UN Conference on Population Control in Mexico City in 1984, hence its name, the policy was and is designed to ensure that U.S. taxpayer money is not funneled to foreign non-governmental organizations that perform or promote abortion in your country, Both Presidents Bush embraced the policy, while Presidents Clinton, Obama, and now Biden overturned the policy by executive order. I would note parenthetically that 37 years ago, in July of 1984, I authored the first of several successful annual amendments on the floor of the House of Representatives to preserve the Mexico City policy. Let me just say that by reversing the Mexico City policy, President Biden is now forcing U.S. taxpayers to fund foreign organizations that promote, lobby for, or perform abortion on demand, again, in countries like yours. President Biden is doing this even though Americans overwhelmingly oppose U.S. foreign aid to subsidize abortion. The Marist poll in January found that more than 3 in 4 Americans, 77%, oppose using tax dollars to support abortions in other countries. President Biden is also seeking to end all pro-life laws at both the federal and state law level, including what we call the Hyde Amendment, a domestic policy ban on funding for abortion that he, as a U.S. Senator, once supported. More than 20 peer-reviewed studies show that more than 2 million people are alive today in the United States because of the Hyde Amendment, with about 60,000 children spared death by abortion every year. Over 2 million people who would have been aborted instead survived because public funds were unavailable to effectuate their violent demise, and their mothers instead benefited from prenatal health care and support. Pro-abortionists everywhere oppose protecting the conscience rights of pro-life doctors, nurses, LPNs, and others. In the United States, we have comprehensive laws to ensure that no one is coerced into performing, assisting, or subsidizing an abortion. For 8 years under President Obama, however, our conscience protection laws were absolutely not enforced, a concern we now have with the new Biden administration. Finally, over the years, many former pro-abortionists and supporters have become pro-life. Like Abby Johnson, a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic director in Texas for 8 years. In her book, Unplanned, which is now a movie as well, Abby Johnson exposed the duplicity and the cruelty of what really goes on behind closed doors at a Planned Parenthood clinic. In it, she writes how she witnessed and assisted in an abortion of a 13-week-old baby by holding the ultrasound probe, and as she pointed out in the book, it was the first ultrasound-guided abortion at that facility. She writes, and I quote, "The details startled me. At 13 weeks, you could clearly see the profile of the head, both arms, legs, and even tiny fingers and toes. With my eyes glued to the image of this perfectly formed baby, I watched as a new image emerged on the video screen. The cannula, a straw-shaped instrument attached to the end of a suction tube, had been inserted into the uterus and was nearing the baby's side. It looked like an invader on the screen. Out of place, wrong. It just looked wrong," she said. She goes on to write, "My heart sped up. Time slowed. I didn't want to look, but I didn't want to stop looking either. At first, the baby didn't seem aware of the cannula. It was gently probed the baby's side for a quick second. I felt relief, but I couldn't shake an inner disquiet that was quickly mounting to the horror as I watched the screen." Remember, this is an abortion clinic director saying all this. She goes on, "The next movement was a sudden jerk of a tiny foot of the baby as he started kicking, as if trying to move away from the probing invader. As the cannula pressed in, the baby began struggling to turn and twist away. It seemed clear to me that the fetus could feel the cannula, and it did not like the feeling. And then the doctor's voice broke through, startling me, quote, 'Beam me up, Scotty.' And the abortionist said lightheartedly to the nurse, he was telling her to turn on the suction." Abby Johnson is today a powerful voice in defense of life and admonishes us to turn abortion workers into allies. Someday, future generations, my friends, will look back on my country and wonder how and why a society that prided itself on human rights and was so blessed with medical science, including ultrasound technology, could have enabled our present-day culture of death. But they will also remember the selfless defenders of life and honor your persistence, your hard work, and your personal sacrifices, especially at a time in history when powerful forces sought to deceive and destroy. Thank you.